You feel guilty for resting because every single time you end up doing it, it feels like something you weren't supposed to be doing, because according to the really well drawn out plan that you have for yourself that is designed to maximize your productivity, it's not. Rest isn't factored in, and so every time you find yourself resting, you're always doing it instead of something else that you feel like you were supposed to be doing, because you can't do anything else. And so rest becomes associated with this feeling of failing to be able to do anything else, rather than being something that you're entitled to by virtue of your existence. And so there's a feeling of guilt that comes with it because you're not supposed to be doing it, but there's also shame that comes with it because you feel like you failed at the things that you're actually supposed to be doing. And that's a really rough place to be in. And what makes it worse is that while you're physically resting, your mind is racing with all of the things that you need to get done when you get back. And once you find yourself physically able to get back to those things and mentally able to get back to those things, you feel a need to push yourself harder in order to play the game of catch up, pushing you closer and closer to needing another round of rest, and so the cycle continues. I have been there, done that, and I have the entire t-shirt collection to show for it. And over the past few months, I've been really forced to confront my relationship with rest. I have never had a good relationship with rest. I look back at my life growing up and I'm able to see clear as day now some of the really harmful messaging I received around rest and just how bad it was. Growing up, there was always an expectation for me to be doing something, whether that was academically, around the house, extracurricularly, or towards something. So there wasn't really room for downtime until the 8 hours of sleep that I would hopefully get at night. During my year's GCSEs, one of our teachers came into the classroom and essentially was giving us a talk about how we're basically not doing enough. And one of the things that he said was that if your head is not hurting by the time you're done revising, you've not revised hard enough. And I remember looking at myself being like, yeah, no, I tend to push myself to the point of having a headache, so I'm doing fine. But actually, looking back and as an adult, what he was saying was, if you've basically not sacrificed your well-being, and if your well-being's not on the line, you've not done this well enough. You've not done a good enough job. You can't stop yet. And he wasn't there, thankfully, to enforce this, but I didn't need him to enforce it because there were people at home that would. And during exam seasons, very rigorous study plans would be drawn up for me. Rest was not factored into those plans at all. And I did really well at exams during my secondary school years especially. So I learned that if I wanted something done effectively, I needed to sacrifice my rest. My plans could not factor in downtime, or should not factor in downtime, if I am to consider them to be effective plans. And one of the overarching messages I received about rest repeatedly was that you get to rest only after you've reached a certain benchmark of productivity. Before that, if you choose to rest, you are lazy and you are doing nothing. That label of laziness, I have my own personal gripes with it, because as someone with ADHD, executive dysfunction is something that I deal with. And so sometimes I simply cannot. And whilst now I refuse to force my brain to operate in ways that it was not designed to, back then I didn't know this. And so I really internalized that thing of being lazy. And so I would push myself past the upper limits of my endurance, and then I would burn out. But the bottom line is, rest isn't a thing that you earn. Rest isn't something that is supposed to come as a reward for reaching a certain level of productivity for a given period of time. Rest is something that you are entitled to by virtue of your existence. You exist, therefore you get to rest, regardless of how productive you've been. And that sounds amazing and incredible, and I've heard that and even said that to so many people, but each time it was time for me to rest, I would still struggle. Until quite recently, I felt burnout creeping upon me, and I don't know why, but I decided I want to rest deliberately. I want to rest on purpose. I know that I'm coming close to burnout, and I don't want to wait until I am deep in it. I want to pull myself out by resting. And so mentally, I decided to do nothing. I put doing nothing on the schedule. I don't actually write out a schedule, but I mentally intended that after work that day I was going to do absolutely nothing, and that was the plan. And for the first time in my life, I actually felt okay with resting and taking a break. And I actually proceeded to take some time off work just to be able to facilitate doing nothing across the board. I say all of that to say you deserve to rest, not because you've hit an arbitrary, socially acceptable level of output for the day, but because you're human. You should not have to justify your need to slow down at times. I also realized that as a woman who goes through hormonal fluctuations on a week-to-week basis throughout the month, that I had been doing myself a great disservice by not honoring and observing the energy level that I had at a particular point in time. But as humans in general, your energy level is going to fluctuate. On some days you're going to have lots of energy, and on some days you're not, and you deserve to be able to accommodate that without feeling guilty. Rest at the end of the day is a part of productivity. Rest is productive. And when we neglect that part of being productive, we actually run the risk of making ourselves less productive in the long run. And if I've learned anything, it's that you're going to rest anyway. You will either rest by choice or you will rest because there isn't really another option other than to slow down. But just know that you deserve to rest. You deserve to be able to be still sometimes. And rest can look like so many different things. Sometimes rest is that physical act of laying down and sleeping. And sometimes it can look like engaging with special interests and engaging in things that fill you back up. So for me, that's music and usually jazz. And sometimes it can look like spending time with people or in conversation with people that are easy on your brain and where you know you don't have to jump through too many mental hoops to communicate with them, and they just feel easy to talk to. The bottom line is you deserve rest because you exist, and that's it. That's your reason. That's your why. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you found it useful. Look after yourself. Take it easy. You deserve it. And I'll see you in my next one. Bye.